Sometimes you just gotta go Bardown.
Kirill, top titty 2x4 to end the game. That was nice.
Bardown Beauties.
That's the sexy part of the game, is it not? The plays and the goals and the...
Yeah, that's what you guys like. I mean, it is great.
And now, a new episode of Bardown Beauties with Jessi Pierce and Kirsten Krull.
At Jim Beam, they know the importance of tradition, like chanting, "Let's play hockey" prior to the start of each game, or playing the state of hockey anthem after a wild win. This season, raise one to your fan family with a bourbon that invites us all to come as friends and leave as family. Jim Beam Bourbon Whiskey, the official bourbon whiskey partner of the Minnesota Wild and XL Energy Center. Drink smart. Jim Beam Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. 40% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2021. James B. Beam Distilling Company, Incorporated, Fairmont, Kentucky.
Hello, everybody. What's up? We're back. Bardown Beauties, episode 257. I'm Jessi Pierce, writer for NHL.com. She's Kirsten Krull, in arena host. I blanked. I completely spaced. It truly is a Monday today, I think.
It is, and you're looking cute, and I look like I rolled out of bed, because I did. I just rolled out of bed. So,
It's jean jacket season, baby. It's like 50 degrees today.
yeah, it is. I've opened my windows, and yeah, everyone be nice to me today, because I feel you can hear it in my voice. Like, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. It's probably making me a bit delirious. And yeah, these roots are going to get touched up today.
You're very good at getting the hair done. Like, I'm not nearly as diligent.
I haven't had it done. Thank you first. I don't think I've had it done since early December.
Yeah. I broke a nail. I'm not flicking you off, but I broke my middle nail.
That's a convenient nail to have broken.
Right? Shout out to everybody that stopped by at the Minnesota Golf Show. That was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
It was fun. It was different, and I liked it, and it's making me very excited to hit the golf course this spring, summer.
Yeah. If you guys want to golf with us, let us know. We're always asking. We're always willing. Get out there. Swing them. We're great golfers.
Also, it's not past me that I just watched myself take a sip of coffee, and for whatever reason, I squinted, and this one was wide open.
I think I have a lazy eye. I've never really, delved into that, but there are certain angles that I'm like, I have a lazy eye.
I don't think you have a lazy eye. I know people that have lazy eyes. You do not have a lazy eye.
Maybe just like a little bit.
I think it's normal for one eye to be smaller than the other. That's probably what you're seeing.
That's probably what I'm seeing. But let's talk some hockey. Hockey is back, Minnesota, with a great comeback victory in Detroit in overtime, courtesy of Marco Rossi. Let's talk about Marco Rossi. I know we've talked about him numerous times because he's the one consistent player, I think, for the Minnesota Wild. He's avoided injury. He's doing things night in and night out. He's kind of being elevated into that top role. He's been on the second line. I mean, he's been a top six forward without doubt. But what's really impressed me is that there's been no letdown from last year. And I don't know that that was necessarily a concern, but I mean, it speaks volumes about who he is as a player.
Yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about him. I'm a broken record. He's continued to build and build and build. He's continuing to be one of the steadiest players on this team, one that you can rely on, that's going to not only do what you need him to do, but also get on the score sheet, seemingly not every night, but every night.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 49 points in 57 games, and 20 of those are Geno's, so we can't go wrong there. And obviously with the absence of Kirill Kaprizov, that helps a lot. I think, again, I would like to reiterate, I will always reiterate this because I have people that are confused about my feelings toward Marco Rossi. I have never once said he was a bust. I said last year was a make or break season. If he did not perform as well as he did last year, I would have considered him a bust. But that wasn't the case. He has lived up to his 9th overall perception, seemingly. I mean, he's getting there, right? Again, 50 points, nearly 50 points on the season with quite a few games to go yet is very good, very promising. The continued conversation, though, is that value a value that you want to keep or a value that you want to trade for more assets? And the only reason I think he would even be in the conversation, whether it's large, small, whatever, is because he's one of the few players that you can move. I would like to reiterate. That's the only reason. Yes, he would yield a high return as well, which is always nice. But I also think it's like, well, he is a player that Billy could potentially move because he has no protection.
When is the last time the Minnesota Wild have had a steady, consistent center a center
What about your
well
boy?
in our system, in our team, besides Jewel Eriksson. Like, that goes without saying. Obviously, I love Jewel, but the conversation for years and years and years when Jewel has been on the team has been, we always have had problems with centers. Like, so that's my one thing. Do you want to risk getting rid of a centerman who has been proving himself and has been exceeding expectations in a lot of people's minds? I mean, the expectations, I think, were up there when he was drafted of what he could be, and he's living up to that. So it's like, why would you do that? To me, it seems history repeats itself. Old habits die hard. You get rid of Marco Rossi expecting this high return, and then it just puts Minnesota back in the same problems they've had with centermen always.
I don't like that you were calling him Jewel.
I always call him Jewel.
I don't like it.
I could call him Joel.
Ewell. I did like the NHL during the Four Nations had like the Finnish players say their name in their like Finnish dialect, if you will. I'm pretty close to getting them right. Just
sometimes I take your pronunciations with a grain of salt.
So Huznadinov told me it was Huznadinov, and it's Ewell, and it's Jesper Valstad. I mean,
okay, but is he telling you it's that in the same way I tell people that call me Kirsten or Kristen that yeah, that's my name? Because I'm so tired of the conversation of people saying my name wrong and correcting them.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That brings us to the trade deadline, Kirsten, which is March 7th, coming up real freaking quick. The Wild will be on the road for that, which is kind of nice for me, but we're going to be at TRs watching the ticker because that's how we handle trade deadline. With Kirill Kaprizov's injury, and again, we've discussed this before, and I asked Bill Guerin straight up during the announcement of Kaprizov's surgery. I said, Billy, how does this... I didn't call him Billy. That's a lie. I just said Bill, maybe even. I don't even know if I
call him Billy, he wouldn't even flinch. He'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to pretend that we're like that. Like, I'm just directly calling him Billy. Billy's my name for him away from the rink. I just say Bill.
I feel you could call him Billy and it'd
Mr.
be totally
Guerin.
fine.
Billy G, BG. But I did ask him, I said, and this was, a number of weeks ago now, what does that look like? And he did genuinely stop and think, I think, and say, yeah, this is something I do. Is it more imperative knowing that Kirill, the timeline has now extended? It doesn't sound like he will be back in that minimum, quote unquote, 4 weeks. I'm doing that in quotations because that was never going to be the case. It was a 6-week thing, but that sounds like it's going to be even longer. Do you think now that it is definitely more of a need that they go out and get a forward at deadline?
No, I don't think it is because of how and it's hard to say at this moment in time because we just came out of the break. We've had one game since coming out of the break, and I wasn't impressed overall with the Detroit game, but I love how they rallied back in order to come out and get that win in Detroit. I don't know. And then going into the break on that 2-game home win streak, especially as we head into all the home games in March, I think if they can survive, there's no need to just survive, get into the playoffs, regardless of what spot you are in. I don't see the need to go out and get a forward. You just need to survive until Kirill comes back.
Right. No, I think that's fair. And there are 5 games between, as we're recording this Monday, between now and the deadline. And Kirill, again, whether he's back before that April 15th regular season, that's not, necessarily, because the reality is, excuse me, you need Kirill to help you better your position, jockey your position in the playoffs, right? You don't necessarily
1,000%.
need
like you're not going to
6.
make a deep playoff run without Kirill Kaprizov.
Right. So I do think it'll depend on where the chips fall. As it sits right now, Minnesota 4-point lead on the Colorado Avalanche for that first wildcard spot. Minnesota in that 3rd spot in the Central, 4 points behind Dallas, who's in number 2, and Winnipeg's up there at number 1. So I do think there's that to be considered, as like, how do they perform between now and that March 7th deadline? I still...
March 7th is also my brother's birthday, so shout out Drew, happy early birthday. My half birthday the day before, 2 days before. Forgot who I was there for a second. March 5th.
There we go. I look at it as, I think there needs to be clarity and honesty on where Kaprizov is at. If it seems like Kaprizov will be back like maybe, what if this is like a season-ending injury? Let's just say, all right, hypothetically, I'm not thinking it is. Kaprizov is going to want to play in the regular season before going into the playoffs. He doesn't want to return just for the playoffs, right? So I don't think they're going to do the whole Mark Stone Las Vegas thing and keep him out until the playoffs and have him return and use that salary cap space during the trade deadline. But
God, I would love if they did, though.
I think if the doctors and Kaprizov are like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to return for the regular season. I'm not going to probably want to come in rusty, and I mean, having not played for months at that point, I'm out. If that's the case, then Bill Guerin makes a move, right? Because he has the salary cap.
Yeah.
So
but also,
that's not a lot of time.
I can't imagine a world where Kirill opts to not play, even if
Right.
he's not
I don't think, and I don't know that it would be an opt-in. I would like to think it is a necessary factor, right? Like if the medical team is like, you know what, dude, it's going to take you up until April 12th before you could even think about returning. And again, I don't know if they have those answers between now and the deadline either.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I'm kind of at.
Yeah. I guess
very
going off of that little tidbit too, I feel part of it is maybe you still regardless would push yourself to come back though, because think of like the season Krull was having, heart conversation, in a year where it's so important for him to play his best, as for him personally, as he's heading into contract negotiations and just increasing his value. I think just all things considered, where he's currently at in his contract, you go out anyways just to show your value. Because right now, when he's not playing, I'm trying to, you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I'm picking up what you're putting down,
like
a little bit.
I'm not saying his value has decreased with him being out, but it's brought up more concerns now that I think as he's heading into contract negotiations.
You know, I would agree, right? Like 14 and a half, that's my offer, Krull. There you go, 14 and a half, 8.
And I wonder like how other I think any organization would be willing to take a gamble on him, aside from obviously, but there's those question marks now about his health, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, I won't ever say it's a gamble for Kirill by any stretch. Because you look at other players, Austin Matthews is hurt all the time.
For sure. But
but yeah.
Like that has been
get what you're
discussed
saying.
before. Like all of the indiscrepancies about, I guess, the injury, like all of the question marks, it's been very vague ever since he went out. And now it's actually going to be longer. Like there's been so much vagueness surrounding it. And like his actual return. So I think the question marks come like, is this going to be a lingering injury? Is this going to be a repetitive injury? Like those kinds of things, not anything to do with his skill, but like health wise.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Speaking of health, you don't want to take on a huge contract for a player that's going to be injured all the time.
Maybe in Gabrick, right? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, it's just, I'll always,
and that's not me saying I don't want Kirill. I'm just saying.
That's what I'm picking up. That's what you hate Kirill. You don't want to resign him.
That's what I imagine is going in and out of a lot of people.
People like to make up their own narratives sometimes. It's kind of fun. Speaking of injury, Matthew Tkachuk possibly out for the season. You're seeing more lingering injuries stemming from the Four Nations. How do you think the NHL handles that, right? I think they saw such elation, such excitement. The Four Nations Championship between Team USA and Hockey Canada was the most watched hockey game in over 20 years, 9.9 million people in the U.S. alone. Tremendous traction, which is also kind of a bummer to then follow that up with a couple of mediocre, regular season games. But how do you think the NHL is going to look at that? Because the Panthers losing Matthew Tkachuk for the rest of the season is not good. I mean, Shea Theodore, we'd already discussed, is out. But you know the guys want to play in it. You know that that's part of it. Is the risk worth the reward?
That was one of my concerns going into the tournament, is especially with how fragile our players have seemed already being injured and then going to play in Four Nations. I'm relieved. I say this first. You don't want to see anyone get injured. That's not what you're hoping for. I'm relieved our guys came out of it unscathed, is my number one thing on that. Huge, huge, huge loss for Florida if Kachuk is out for the whole season now. I think more so the league might have to do damage control with the coaches and organizational staff as far as like their star players going and playing in this tournament. I think it brings up concerns moving forward about who's going, which I don't want it to, because then I think it diminishes the product. Like, you want best on best, you're going to pull your best players out. But the NHL, after seeing this success, there's no way they're not going to do this tournament again. Like,
Right.
it's going to continue. It would be dumb to put a stop to it after you've seen this much success. But yeah, you're going to have to do damage control with the organizations and get that figured out.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's also on the guys. I think they really listen to their players. The NHL does a nice job of that. They knew that this was something that they wanted, and it showed. It's a great marketing tool for hockey. We have so many new hockey fans. I have friends that don't pay attention to hockey, largely most of my friends actually. And they were all tuned in. They were all jacked. And again, that's something that can't be replicated throughout the course of a season anyway. You're not going to have that rivalry, that passion, that skill level altogether. You're not going to see Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon together to go put on the best until the Olympics next year, which is going to be tremendous. But I have to wonder, the NHL has to be a little nervous about that, because you now have guys returning to their teams, and their teams in this playoff hunt getting every point they need, and they might be without some of their best players. So curious to see the discussion that follows amongst all this.
Yeah. Hopefully it's on a nice beach, cocktails in hand, good vibes flowing when that conversation happens.
It's just good vibes. Nothing but good vibes.
Yeah.
Speaking of good vibes, we got some good vibe and questions. That was terrible. That was
not your best.
Yeah.
Not your best work.
No, I've done better. But all that to say, we're going to take a break. When we come back, some cues with the Beauts.
Your nostalgic SotaStick favorites are back, and they are in stock now at SotaStick.com. From the Met Center colored seats, my personal favorite tee, to the getting blown out the Metrodome door, rep the Minnesota sports timeless vibes with a SotaStick hat, hoodie, tee, whatever suits you and their nostalgic vibes. SotaStick has all the best gear in the game. Don't forget to smash Bardown Beauties at checkout for 15% off all your purchases. Again, that's at SotaStick.com. All right, we are back. Cues of the Beauties.
Where's that look?
Quick puppy appearance for anyone who was noticing. You saw a little nose up in the corner.
I just saw your little face, and I was like, what? Like, I thought maybe you were excited about my song. Of course not.
I'm always excited about your song.
You should be.
Always.
You know, I wrote a rap last night.
Why?
I don't know. It's inspiration.
For what?
Literally nothing. Like, literally nothing. So I'm like the gangster T Swift. But my songs are actually, that's a lie, because they're not edgy or hardcore. Like, last night was about just life. I don't know. And I would say it's a poem, but it's not, because I put it to music in my head. I made up like a beat to it.
This is intriguing.
I got a whole notebook full of brilliance, let me tell you. But let's go to our cue, some brilliant questions here. Our first one coming from our friend Alex Micheletti. He wants to know, would you rather the Wild finish in a wild card spot to avoid playing Dallas or Colorado in the first round and play a Pacific team like Edmonton or Vegas instead? Right now, Minnesota would be paired up with the Dallas Stars, Dallas at number 2, Minnesota at number 3. Should the playoffs start today, they would face, Edmonton or Vegas likely, should they move in. What are your takes there, Kirsten?
I would love to face Dallas for the rivalry. The rivalry last time we played them was fun in the playoffs. Don't want to face Jake Ottinger. So don't want to see Dallas, period.
Facts.
I also don't want to see a Vegas. Edmonton, I don't feel we've performed our best with. That said, I want to work in a position where we could face Colorado first round. Colorado does not scare me. I have said that all season. They do not scare me. I think they've been falling off, respectfully, but disrespectfully.
I think they're going to have a good second half here because they're getting some guys back. But yeah, I agree. Colorado isn't the threatening team that they've been of years past, so they wouldn't make me nervous. Yes, Jake Ottinger. Jason Robertson's been really turning it back on. Tyler Seguin comes back, I believe, pretty quick here. But I'm not afraid. I think, the easy out here is you have to face the best anyway, right? Like, give me whoever's there. So I don't know necessarily that you want to fall out of that third spot for an easier competition. Not to mention, they haven't performed great against Edmonton. They haven't performed great against Vegas necessarily either. So you're going to be going against a good team, which is what you want. But I understand the sentiment behind the question. But give me Dallas. Yeah, let's go Dallas. I come out winning either way.
I hate that so much.
I know you do.
So many people hate that. Like, the only person I think who hates it more than me is Kevin Gorg. That's like,
Yeah.
it
Kevin
makes
needs
him
to
so
take a chill
mad.
pill. Like, I'm
Your
going to get him.
fascination with two of his most disliked teams.
I like good hockey. They have good hockey teams. Like, if it
Okay,
wasn't
well,
them,
that's-
if it was,
That's
if
a
Seattle
conversation
had
for you and him.
if Seattle had a good hocky team, I'd like Seattle. You know what I mean?
So you're
Like,
just
they don't
gonna
have an
bandwagon
exciting
when
team.
they do eventually get a good hockey
But I'm not necessarily like all. I don't have any merch.
yet.
We've talked about this. I'm not gonna have any merch.
No,
I do look good in
I'm
green and
also
blue, though.
sorry. I can't scold Bodie for chewing on his bone right now.
That's
So if
fine.
you guys hear Bodie
Yeah.
chewing in the background, that's just him saying hi.
It's just
Friendly
a little
dog,
bones.
just
a
hanging
little
out.
bones. Right.
Yeah. All right, your turn. What do I got for you? Jean Nicklay. Did you watch the girls' tournament? Your thoughts on the winners, the ending to Class A final, and the prospects of teams from south of the cities competing on the same level as those from the cities and north?
Yeah, I checked in a little bit, obviously, during the tourney, which started last Wednesday, played down at the X. Great championship competition. Kind of love to see War Road get bounced. War Road has, forever been this wagon, and they went through a lot of adversity this year, too, just with some politics going on there. But I love seeing Dodge County. Taylor Heisey is a Dodge County girl, a Southern Minnesota girly, Red Wing, all of that good stuff. And having worked with Minnesota hockey at the youth level, I saw Dodge County in their youth state tournament year after year on the girls' side. So it's nice to see how that really builds up into success on the high school level. So congrats to them for taking Class A. Heck of a turnout for Hill Murray and Edina. Hill Murray, though, has a couple familiar names with the Poles. Yes, that's Johnny Pole and Chrissy Wendell Pole's daughters. Fantastic outcome there with Hill Murray taking down. Although Hill Murray has been there before. They've had Hannah Brandt help them to championships before. But all in all, I like to see parity. Give me different teams. Give me a shakeup, especially when it comes to the championship. So congrats to the Pioneers and Dodge County for their respective, and congrats to everybody that made it there. It was another fun year of girls hockey on the big stage.
Yeah. Shout out Dodge County. It's about 20 minutes from where I grew up. I know people that have gone through the program personally or their kids. It's up and coming. Be on the lookout for them. This is not the first nor last time you will see them up on the big stage. So watch
Agreed.
out.
All right. Our friend Derek, Hockey and Loud Music, wants to know, when did you fall in love with hockey?
Yes. For me, well, I think there's like two parts to it. I always say this to people. I feel like we're just like on my couch with my coffee and I'm
I love
story
this, though.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the vibe.
For me, I did not grow up in a hockey family. I had friends who played girls hockey growing up, went to some of their games, went to some of the boys' games like for high school, just hang out. But I did not come from a hockey family. I was not like intertwined with the game from an early age. It wasn't until I was a junior in high school I decided I was going to St. Cloud State and I was going to go for their broadcasting program. And obviously the focal point of their broadcasting program was surrounding coverage of their men's and women's hockey team. And I was like, well, I want to be a part of that. I need to learn the game if I want to be a part of it. And I'm going to start now. So junior year of high school is when I really started watching hockey, because I used to be a casual watcher watching the Wild before, full disclosure. So I started watching. It was about the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Nashville Predators were playing, and I just decided I was following them through the rest of the way. And I watched all their games and was just immersed with the game from that point on. And then when I went to St. Cloud State, obviously the rest was history. You can't go to school there and not fall in love with the game, the history of it, and the atmosphere as well. So, yeah.
Love that for you.
Thank you.
I did grow up in kind of a hockey family. My mom's from International Falls. My dad went to Hill Murray. They were both big hockey fans. I went to a number of Hill Murray White Bear showdowns at the Coliseum back in the day when I was a kid. But I kind of take it or leave it. My parents got season tickets for the Wild when they came around, but I wasn't a big Wild fan. I was a big Gopher hockey fan growing up. Like I remember just really being enamored with that, going to a Gopher hockey game. 7th grade, I went to my first state tournament because Matamidi actually made the state tournament that year and did very poorly, mind you. But I remember being there and being like, this is really cool. Like it was just a cool atmosphere to be a part of. And I also maybe saw that hockey players were like kind of cute, and I was in middle school and I was like, hey. So I started paying a little bit more attention really starting in 7th grade. And then my senior year, having been cut from the varsity basketball team, which was a travesty, as you can imagine.
Rest in peace to your WNBA career.
Right? That was it. That was the cutthroat
That was the dream.
thing. God, man, what could have been? My friend had asked me if I wanted to be the stats girl for the varsity hockey team, and I was like, yeah, why not? You know, I hang around hockey guys and talk sports. And then that's where I really learned like the game. Like I was like, holy cow, this is really fun. Like I learned, like I went in so blind, like I didn't realize a face-off win is when you hit the puck behind you and what it meant to be a plus minus and all of those little intricacies that I didn't need to know. You don't need to be a hockey fan to, you don't need to know those things to be a hockey fan by any stretch. But that's when I was like, I really love this game. And it really connected me with my mom, who was a huge hockey fan. And then I just kind of pursued the career. I was like, hey, the nice thing about hockey, like in the hockey media broadcasting world, with the exception of Minnesota, I know we have a very skewed perception of it, but there's many more hockey opportunities when it comes to media than there are other sports because it is such a niche and there's not many people that necessarily are clamoring for that. So it was nice to go down to Iowa State and immediately get immersed into the club hockey level and have a lot more opportunities to do play-by-play and TV and all that. But all that to be said, I've loved hockey since I loved Hockey Boys since I was 13. I loved hockey since I was 18, 17.
Love.
Right?
Love that.
Now I get to combine it all, right?
I just like to say to people, maybe boys who weren't so nice to me when they knew that this is what I wanted to do. Growing up, I'm like, I made it to the NHL before you did.
Right? It's so good. It feels so good.
It feels so good.
I do have people that like I kind of remember telling people like I'm gonna work for the Wild when I'm 18. Like I was so cutthroat on that. Like I had no backup plan, right? Like I mean I would have figured it out. But to have like, oh, I do kind of work like for the Wild. And agreed.
Yeah.
I'm in the NHL. I sign my NHL contract every summer. It's great.
Yeah. I don't, but anytime I need to re-sign like the Wild Handbook, staff employee, I'm like,
there you go. It's your turn.
Oh, I was waiting. Guys, I told you I'm tired. You were warned about this.
It's fine. Just getting through it.
Alan Post, do you think Ovi passes 99 before the Wild game or at the Wild game?
Oh, God, what is he at, 13?
And also, I'm going to include this one within because our good friend Jeremy Lagos, he asked when Ovi breaks the scoring record, does that make him the GOAT? He says yes in his opinion, by the way.
It's very true. Ovi's at 13 goals away. I think it's, 16 games until he plays here?
It's possible.
He is on a tear. The man is a menace to society. I love it. Imagine if he didn't break his leg. Like, he would have passed it already,
would have been done. It would have been done by now.
Right, which is insane. Like, he's relentless. I love it. Good for him. I mean, getting a hat trick the other night against the Oilers, good on him. I can't see it happening here now, which makes me heartbroken for a number of reasons. So I think he passes before, unfortunately for me and all of us Wild fans. Still be great to see him and how far he's going to go with this new record he's setting. I don't think, like, I know we've all talked about the hype and excitement. I don't think we truly recognize how big of a deal this is. Like, that record has been long-standing forever, and Ovechkin's doing it in a completely different NHL era through decades of a different NHL era. So to Jeremy's question, that does make him the GOAT. I mean, Wayne Gretzky will always be special, and I think I always hate this, and it extends to basketball and pretty much every sport. It doesn't have to be just one. Like, you can have two greatnesses on these different varying levels. Like, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James can all be great. And same with Ovechkin and Crosby and Gretzky and Lemieux. Like, they are all great. Like, that's okay. There doesn't have to, nobody says there can be only one, right? This isn't only one Highlander. Like, Ovi is incredible. There's no question. And I don't think he's, what Wayne Gretzky did for the game is one thing, and what Ovechkin has done for the game in his generation is another. So, yeah, he is a great one. Anything to add?
No notes.
No notes. I love it. I love when we do that. Shayla Mew would like to know, are we scared about Jesper Velstead yet? I talked at length with this with Joe O'Donnell, and I think Joe really I'm taking over the question. This is a question for you first, but do you want me to say what
just continue?
But I talked about this with Joe O'Donnell last week, because there is an overarching concern. I think Joe said it best, that Jesper desperately needs the season to end. He needs a reset. He just needs to get out of the year. It's not coming back. It's just it's not necessarily concerning for the future, because people have off years. Players have off years. Freddie Gaudreau bounced back decently from a really, really bad year last year, and Philip Gustafsson has bounced back. So, I mean, it's very possible, I think, for Jesper, for his mind, and just to get that clarity, he needs the season to end. I think it's a bad year. It's down. It's awful. I wouldn't say it makes me worried. It makes me curious about how he comes into next year. I think he's the type of player that's going to give it his all in the offseason without question. So that's where I'm holding off on any true fear-mongering. But it sucks to watch him struggle as much as he has, knowing that next year is his time to shine. But I think he needs a desperate end of the year.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is the mental aspect. Granted, not somebody who's a goalie connoisseur who knows all of the intricacies of being a goalie. Right. But yes, I think no one probably has known one of the people. What I'm trying to say is Joe O'Donnell. I trust his insight a lot, heavily. That man knows that Iowa Wild organization, knows the players. Yeah, I think he'd probably just hit it head on. Mentals.
Exactly. I'm going to give you another one, since I grabbed a hold of that one. O-Train wants to know, who is the best player to interview on the Wild?
Jake Middleton. Duh. Like, you literally put a microphone in front of his face. It probably terrifies the organization, but from a viewer standpoint, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth.
True. I'd put Foligno up there.
Foligno's always a good interview. He's funny, but he just doesn't have the unhingedness that Midzi does.
No. What makes Foligno tough to interview is he kind of does the run-on sentences, and I'm speaking this as a writer who has to transcribe it afterward. Like, it's just a little challenging. Rock Paper's the most succinct interview that you could get, that, like, full, complete sentences. So from, like, that perspective, it's
I love
nice.
how authentic Brock is. Whatever he's thinking, he shows on his face.
So good. So good.
Yeah. There's that, too.
And, I could tell you, do you want to know who's not good at interviews?
No, we're not, because we're not going to do that. It's a Monday. The vibes are good this week. Matt Boldy, I always enjoy his comments, because he kind of gives a little bit of Jack Hughes.
A little sassy sometimes.
He is, I feel what I see, he's very sassy. He gives the Jack Hughes, which I also enjoy. I'm happy I don't have to interview Jack Hughes, but I love watching.
No, I have zero
replies.
I can't handle that. Like, dude, I just need you to answer the question, please. Like, I don't, Or did you see even Austin Matthews' sass the other day?
No, but if I was Austin Matthews, I'd be sassy too.
So, obviously it was, I won't call a spade a spade. It was his fault that Connor McDavid scored in the slot, because Matthews left him wide open in the slot. And McDavid scored the game winner in overtime there for Canada to claim gold. So one of the reporters, and he asked the question nicely, like, it wasn't a jab by any means, like, do you think that is, you almost got in the way of it, and do you think that's going to haunt you? And the reporter must have been named Kevin or something, and Matthews just goes, "Sure, Kevin." Just like a very curt tone, like, yeah, sure, Kevin.
This makes me want to bring up my favorite Austin Matthews moment ever, when somebody's like, when was it? He like ran into the post or hit his head on the post, something. This was years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what happened, but the reporter said like, like something about doing it. And he's like, yeah, I just saw the post and decided I was going to hit my head on it. Great question.
I just wanted to see how it felt against my face or something like that.
I need to find that clip again, because sometimes I watch it just to laugh. Like, that's my favorite. Austin
Need
Matthews
those.
moment ever. So whenever like his playing career ends and he's going into retirement, that's going to be something I continue just to bring
Fair.
up, resurface. Like it
Valid.
literally has rent in my mind, and
Mhm.
I'm not mad about paying the fee.
I love that.
Yeah. I didn't forget this time. What big name will the Wild sign in the off season?
Oh gosh, I don't. Again, I haven't truly looked. Let's see, top free agents in NHL.
Going for the top ones.
Jeez Louise.
That's very
I
presumptuous.
mean, Brock
of you.
Besser does make sense, right? Like,
Can we afford?
you can afford Brock Besser come the off season. You're not getting Mikko Rantanen.
God, I would love Mikko Rantanen.
Not happening. Let's see. I would say Matt Duchene wouldn't be terrible either. I bet JVR wants to come here. He loves Minnesota. I believe he lives in Minnesota in the offseason. Don't really want him. Tarasenko wouldn't be
No.
terrible,
I'm not
especially if
interested.
you're trying to get Kirill to be all extra happy. I
I'm
think
not
Brock Besser
really
makes sense. And personally, I would prefer Besser over Nelson, I think.
I do not want
if
Brock
you were to
Nelson
go that
either. I
route.
say respectfully.
I do say respectfully, and again, my Minnesota feelings on Nelson extend to Besser as well, but Besser, from just a sheer skill standpoint, I like
Yeah,
a lot more
agreed.
from up the middle. So, because he's younger, so that's a large point. But I'd be just as annoyed about the Minnesota love as well. So,
Yeah, fair.
which young player has the brightest future on the Wild? Boldy, Faber, or Z Buium?
That was a really loud there's two directions I want to go with this. I say Brock Faber, hands down. Just there's not a young player right now, young defenseman especially, that's doing what Brock Faber's doing right now. I think without a question it's Fabes. But I think Zeev Buium right now, there's just so much excitement about his potential and the possibility of maybe seeing him on the squad come the end of the college hockey season. So I don't know. I kind of steer also towards Buium just because I'm so excited about what he can possibly bring.
I'll throw my hat in the Boldy. I'm with you on Faber. I think Faber would be my pick as well. But I don't think any of that's to discredit Boldy and what he is going to mean to the organization. I think once he finds that consistency in his game, again, we saw it at World Championships last spring, and you saw it at Four Nations. He's a very good player. He just needs to, I think, accept that he can be that power forward, that he can use that physical presence. He can, it doesn't have to be these fancy plays. I think sometimes he gets caught up in the finesse and the skill of the game. Not to say he doesn't have those skills, but I think he just needs to use that grittiness and that size a little bit more. And once he can do that, and once he can do that consistently, he's going to be a catalyst for this offense, no question about it. So I agree with you, though, on Faves and Buium. Hell of a shutdown defensive pairing that's going to be, because they're going to be out there for like 30 minutes.
I can't wait.
Insane.
I can't wait.
Insane. And our final question coming to us from Frankie MN5. We already discussed it a little bit, but should they do Four Nations every year, and would you add more teams?
Well, this, I'm quoting you, Jessi, because I agree. You can't have a best on best without Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So yes to adding more teams. Every single year, you can't because of the Olympic year, for one. But also, I do think you do away with All-Star and do the tournament. But then also, I don't know, I'm interested to see for longevity how it goes for the league. Like after a few more years, once the initial excitement wears off, like how the viewership remains.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of intangibles, I think, that need to be considered to do it every year. I agree. I think it's been very clear, not just from the NHL standpoint, but from the NBA and the NFL too, that All-Star games are just, people don't care, right?
No.
Like fans don't care about it.
I think fans
the players
care from the
don't care.
standpoint of trying to get close to the players, like if you can afford
Sure.
a ticket, like autographs, whatnot. But it's kind of just for like little kids or like super fans, and it's outdated. And
Right.
It's just become a chore for the players too, I feel.
I know a lot of people didn't love when the NHL did like North America versus the young stars, but I would be curious to like reintroduce something like that, because the reason you can't do necessarily Germany's or Austria's, I mean, you're leaving out the Czechs, all of those players. There's just not enough in the NHL, and because it's an NHL sanctioned event, you can only have NHL players participating. But that leaves out Leon Draisaitl. That leaves out, you know, Austrian players like Marco Rossi or what have you too. So
Maybe
you
you
have
do
to
a
figure
team
out a
of
way.
misfits. You call them the
Yeah.
misfits.
Like some sort of what do they do? The IOC, the independent country. Like, isn't that what Russia technically played under?
Maybe.
Was like your independence or something. So maybe if you could factor in a way to get some of those guys there, that would be really cool. But yeah, you can't just have the same 4 teams over and over again. That'll just kind of be like, okay, we get it. I mean, it'd still be great hockey, don't get me wrong. And I agree, you need Russia there. And that's something that's over our heads and political hands, but
Yeah.
let them play the game. It's a game, you know.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here. Bardown Beauties, episode 257. I'm Jessi Pierce. She's Kirsten Krull. You guys are awesome. Thank you to everybody that asked the questions. Appreciate it. Minnesota Wild back in action today when you are listening to this on Tuesday against the Detroit Red Wings in St. Paul. And we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Near, 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 near.